All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike, and you have now arrived at my train of thoughts. Now, I'm going to continue the previews of the NFL season and with the rookies and breakout stars, guys. The guys I'm looking forward to seeing if they can take that step forward, and the rookies I'm looking forward to seeing in general. So I'm going to split this up and do the bottom tiers first and then the top two tiers. So we're going to get the zombie tier and monkey paw tiers in this video, and then in the next one I'm going to do the playoff and the title tier teams in the order that I presented them last week with my previews. First, zombie tiers. Patriots, Drake May, Christian Gonzalez. Drake May is pretty obvious. When he gets a chance to play, if he does, he's going to be looked to be the quarterback of the future. He's going to be looked to be the guy that can help bring New England out of the basement where it feels like they're going to be for a minute. Jacoby Brissett is making a very interesting sacrifice, as he is going to be probably buried because that offensive line they have is just crazy. It's not crazy in a good way. Anyway, Christian Gonzalez. I do think he's going to be a very talented player. He showed himself to be as such in year one. I think he will continue to be in year two. And as long as he's healthy, I think he will be even more dynamic and more capable of getting in-os. That's looking like an incredible steal in this draft from Bill Belichick's final first round. Carolina, Xavier Legette, Ike Mekwonu. In the case of Legette, he's going to have to be the wide receiver one in the future, right? I mean, that's what they drafted him to be, I would have to think. And in his case, I think he and Adam Thielen are going to be two guys that kind of feed off each other as the main receivers and pass catchers. And I think to make this offense go, Aquan is going to have to step his game up. This Panther offensive line was pretty awful for a lot of the season, and Bryce Young got battered. For him to have a fighting chance, Aquan and company are going to have to keep him upright. New York Giants. Malik Neighbors, Jalen Hyatt. One wide receiver is new and has got a whole lot of promise and potential. Feels like the shiny new toy syndrome. The other receiver has been around for a couple years, but he's got flashes and he's got talent. Can he finally show it? Can Daniel Jones get either of these receivers the ball enough, to be honest? Denver, Bo Nix, Jonathan Cooper. Nix is pretty obvious. He's the QB1. He's the guy that Sean Payton believes in. He's got a bunch of experience despite him being a rookie. I do think Bo Nix will be interesting. I do think Bo Nix will be capable of winning some games. Is Denver good enough to make the playoffs? I'd say no, but I do think they're at least good enough to win a couple games. As for Jonathan Cooper, pretty good year last year. He got 8.5 sacks. Can he up that number to 11 or 12? That is where I am with him. That's where, to me, I think he can get to. Arizona, Marvin Harrison, Xavier Collins. Harrison's obvious, right? He's going to be the guy that's the wide receiver one in the future. I think he's the best player that came out in this draft. I think Marvin Harrison is going to be fully capable of being a very productive player. But Xavier Collins has not been over his career, and it's kind of been disappointing to see that. It's been a little disappointing to see Xavier Collins not be that do-it-all linebacker that he was supposed to be when he came out in the 21 draft. In a contract year for Xavier, can he prove his worth and earn himself another contract somewhere, even if it's not in Arizona? Tennessee, T'Vondre Sweat, Chigoziem Okonkwo. For Sweat, it's a matter of can he shake off the labels that he once had coming out of college. Another guy who had labels on him before he came to Tennessee, Justin Simmons. Simmons has turned out to be an excellent defensive tackle. I think Sweat could make Simmons' job that much easier because he's a clog in the middle of defensive line. He was at Texas. He might be able to do it again. As for Okonkwo, there's a good amount of weaponry in Tennessee now, with Calvin Ridley coming over, with DeAndre Hopkins, who played pretty well last year. He's going to be back soon enough. With Tyler Boyd coming over, maybe even Treylon Burke as a wide receiver 4. Tennessee's got the weaponry. And also Tony Pollard, who came over, and now Tajay Spears and he are going to share the backfield. The seams are going to be kind of sort of open. I think he's going to have a decent year at tight end yet again, one of those sleeper guys. Las Vegas, Brock Bowers, Jack Jones. In the case of Bowers, the pick itself was a little confusing to see because I wasn't expecting the Raiders to go tight end in back-to-back years early in the draft. Mike Mayer had a good year. So that was a little surprising to see that. Perhaps there's going to be a good amount of 12 personnel with the Raiders offense to take some pressure off of Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew for that matter. Gardner Minshew is going to be the starter. And I'd have to think with Bowers, he shows off some of that skill he had in Georgia. As for Jack Jones, maybe he just needed a place that could consider home. For proof of this, he actually played pretty well once he came over from New England. He got a couple of pick sixes, including the NO of the year with that one-handed pick six as he overran that ball against the Chargers. That was awesome to see that. Jack Jones, I think, could step his game up to even higher heights. And with Antonio Pierce, who I really like as the head coach, the Raiders seem to really turn a corner once they put him as the interim. I think the Raiders could be doing something here. And Minnesota, Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel. Two guys in the front seven that are going to be needed vitally. In the case of Turner, I think he will certainly be needed with Jonathan Greenland there, and how he was effectively traded to Houston with Neil Hunter. Greenland really broke out last year, and I think to really help that pass rush go, Turner's going to have to break out in some way this year and have a pretty solid rookie year. Andrew Van Ginkel was kind of a Swiss Army knife. He was beloved in Miami by a lot of Dolphin fans. He was beloved by people on HBO because of Hard Knocks. If you need him to go cover people, bet he could do it. If you need him to go slide out in the zone, bet he could do that. If you need him to go blitz, because he's a very good blitzer, bet he could do that. AVG has got experience also in the Brian Flores system, because he was in Miami with Flores in 2020. I think Andrew Van Ginkel is going to, and in 2019 as well. I should also mention that. But I think AVG is going to have a pretty productive year in Minnesota and kind of do a little bit of everything. Now let's go to the monkey paws here. LA Chargers. Thad McConkey, Asante Samuel Jr. McConkey's got to be wide receiver one because, let's face it, they let their receivers go. And Mike Williams obviously was injured a lot, and Keenan Allen was getting a little older, but Allen was still really good. Yet neither of them are Chargers anymore. For McConkey, he's going to have to step up where Quentin Johnston did not and become a really good receiver from go. He's always had good hands. He's always been a good route runner. Can he continue that? And then there's Asante Samuel Jr., who shocks me because he only has 9 NOs in his career. Of the 9, 3 of them were in that playoff game against the Jaguars, which is also shocking. Asante Samuel, I have to think, takes that next step forward and becomes one of the better corners in the game, or at least one of the better ones in terms of taking the ball from people, similar to how his father did. Washington, Jaden Daniels, Dynamic Brown. This feels like the combination of the future for the Commanders, with Terry McLaurin, obviously. In the case of Daniels, pretty obvious, right? Number 2 in the draft. He's got a pretty good squad around him. He's got capable coaching. The offensive line can be a little bit better, but that comes with time. Daniels looks incredibly dynamic so far. Can he continue to be that? In the case of Dynamic Brown, it's probably the reason why Jahan Dotson's in Philly now with the Eagles. Dynamic Brown showed himself to be a solid wide receiver 3. Now he's going to have to be 2, with Terry McLaurin on the opposite side of him, of course. Dynamic Brown looks like he could be something. Can he live up to that? New Orleans, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Peyton Turner. In this case, it feels like changing of guards are going to have to happen sooner rather than later. For McKinstry, can he take the mantle from Marshawn Lattimore? Where Lattimore was incredible and has been as such for years in New Orleans as a CB1. He's still very good. But McKinstry's going to have his time and have his opportunities to kind of help ease the burden of Lattimore. And then there's Peyton Turner. Cam Jordan did not have the Cam Jordan typical year last year, which is a bit surprising. Can Turner take some pressure off of him and or take the mantle from him eventually? He's going to have to do that. Seattle. Byron Murphy, Tyrell Dodson. The common thread here is simple. This run defense was awful last year. Murphy's brought in to be the clog in the middle of the defense. And with Leonard Williams back, in theory, his job will be a little bit easier. It'll have no choice but to be done, though. Can they really get enough defensive line push to help keep that run game better than what it used to be, or at least what it was last year? As for Dotson, he's going to be one of the linebackers that start for Seattle this year. He's going to certainly have his opportunity to make his place in the run game. Somebody's going to have to in the middle of that defense with Jordan Brooks now gone to Miami. You effectively traded Brooks for Jerome Baker. So we'll see what happens with that. And Brooks, one thing he did well was a pretty decent run stuffer in his own right, a pretty decent playmaker, and a very good leader. Can Dotson help become said leader as well? New York Jets, Malachi Corey, Will McDonald. In the case of Corey, I do worry and am concerned about Mike Williams' health. It just hasn't held up lately. And for the Jets to really have that extra weapon for Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have to hold up properly. At least Corey will. And be the wide receiver 2 or 3 if Williams isn't healthy. He'd have to be 2, of course. Can Aaron Rodgers trust this rookie where he hasn't trusted some rookies in his past? That will be a telling sign to see. As for McDonald, we saw last year Jermaine Johnson take that step forward. Year 1, he wasn't that great, Johnson wasn't. Year 2, he was very good. And now, he might have to be the edge rusher 1 without Hassan Reddick. Can McDonald step up and be the proper edge rusher 2? Or even leap Johnson as the edge rusher 1 like Brees Huff did? Or Huff was very good. This is going to be much needed for a Jets team that is very well rounded on defense otherwise. Pittsburgh. For Fatanu, Joey Porter Jr. For Fatanu, he's going to be part of a physical offensive line. He's the line that prides itself on being that. And being the right tackle, where he's been left tackle for a lot of his career at Washington, that'll be something to see. Can he actually do that? Can he continue his progression there? As for Joey Porter Jr., Pittsburgh's defense, very well-rounded, very capable. Except the cornerback spot. Kind of uncertain there. Can Porter become CB1 properly in Pittsburgh? Jacksonville, Brian Thomas, Tyson Campbell. In Brian Thomas's case, he's going to have to be wide receiver 2 almost immediately, unless Gabe Davis is really like that. If Thomas is like that, I think it makes his offense a little bit better, because covering Gabe Davis in the slot may be a very unfortunate situation to undertake. As for Campbell, I don't love the corners in this defense. I like the safeties, Cisco, and I like Darnell Savage, but the cornerbacks room, a little concerning. One of them's got to step their game up. In theory, it's got to be Campbell, right? Chicago will close this out with Caleb Williams and DeMarcus Walker. Caleb's obvious. I won't say too much here. Caleb Williams looks like he's going to be that guy. He's got an offense around him that looks like they're going to be that unit. So, can he do that? I would think so, but we'll see. If he can't, then it's going to be a very cruel winter, because the Bulls are bad, and the Blackhawks are worse, and the White Sox may set the record for most losses in the league. You could actually get in their stadium for free, apparently. It's a wild thing in Chicago. At least the Cubs have a shot. And then there's DeMarcus Walker, who should be the beneficiary of a Montez Sweat slanted style protection scheme, because Sweat really changed the dynamic of that Bear defense once he got there. And I would imagine he's going to get double teamed a lot going forward for Chicago. Because of this, you would think Walker is going to have the golden opportunity to step his game up and become that guy as a pass rusher. Can he do that? I would think so. At least he's going to have the opportunity to. And with that, you've arrived at the final stop of this train of thought. The next train is going to start with the playoff tier rookies and breakout guys. Who do I think will break out for those 8 teams? And then we go into the title tier for those 8 in the same vein. In this video, I will do them in order of how I had them in the tier list, which means Indianapolis, you will be the first stop of that train of thought.